Welcome to the Philadelphia Asian American Film Festival live stream. My name is Eric Hong, and I'm a programmer and grant writer for PAAFF. I am also the executive director of the Music of Asian America Research Center, which is one of PAAFF's many community partners. I will be moderating this afternoon's filmmaker Q&A with the creators of 3 short films, The Rose of Manila, Winning in America, and Kalinga. Sean Wong might join us later, and he is the director of Sunday. We will be taking audience questions, so please be sure to type your questions into the comment section, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. So let's go around the virtual room and have our guests introduce themselves and their film. Let's start with the shorts program order. So Alex, can you begin?
Hi, my name is Alex Westfall, and I'm the writer, director, producer, and editor of The Rose of Manila.
Okay, Amrita?
Hi, my name is Amrita Singh, and I'm the writer and director of the short film Winning in America.
And Kent?
Hi everyone, I'm Kent Donguines, and I'm the director of a short documentary called Kalinga.
Wonderful. Welcome to all of you. Let us begin with The Rose of Manila first. So what led you to become interested in the earlier years of Imelda Marcos?
Yeah, thanks for this question. I grew up in Manila, and my grandfather worked in media. And in the 1980s, there was this really obviously my grandfather was, and my mother's family was experiencing life under the dictatorship, and there was sort of an incident that led to my family's exile to Los Angeles. So I sometimes think, and the important point is that Los Angeles is where my mother met my father. So I sometimes think that, if it wasn't for this dictatorship, maybe I wouldn't have been born. And so that's something that I've just been grappling with in my existence. I sort of have this cosmic connection to this wild dictatorship, and this cosmic connection to Imelda Marcos, whether I like it or not. So that's just something that I've been thinking about as I've gotten older. And when I came across this story in the research center at my library in undergrad about how she sort of competed in this beauty pageant when she was in her early 20s, and she did everything that she could to be named the winner or a winner. I just totally thought that could be read as a precursor to how she treated the political throne, and being kind of the first lady, and being this dictator figure. So I really wanted to create a film that can maybe explore these questions of destiny and how history unfolds. And so that's sort of what led me to make this film.
Wonderful. So how much research have you done on Imelda Marcos?
Yeah, a good amount, I would say. It's really interesting because with her especially, she controls her image, and so there is not that much that can be confirmed. So even when you read newspapers from, that talk about this, when you read newspapers and listen to accounts that talk about people who were, witnesses at this pageant, and the journalists who write about it, there's so much gossip and so much, every story is very different. And so, I wanted to kind of create this story that was like partly fact and partly fiction. And I guess I imbued sort of my own perspective and my own experience too, into the research process and the kind of creative process.
Right. So one thing I found really interesting is that you chose not to show the secret meeting with the judges, right? Can you talk about that decision? And you just
Sure,
left
yeah.
it as a title?
Yeah, absolutely. So one director that I really, really love is the Thai director, Apichatpong Weerasethakul. And this is a technique that he uses a lot, I think, to condense time and to condense action, which I think is a really effective. I don't know. I think I saw Uncle Boonmi like a few years ago, and I just completely fell in love with the way that he used text to kind of tell story in condensed time. And so I was thinking a lot about sort of what I was talking about earlier and how this secret meeting, no one really knows what happened. Imelda herself says that the judges loved her so much that they had to give her a second title. But then when you talk to other people or read newspapers or read the tabloids, people say that she seduced them. People say that she threw a tantrum. So I wanted to sort of kind of stay true to the fact that we can't know what actually happened. And I thought it would be most effective to use text in this way. And I hope it was effective.
Yeah, no, it was very interesting and very effective. So one of our staff members really want to know more about the turtle in the first film.
I love this question.
Was that some like was Imelda Marcos really interested in turtles, or was that one of the things that you inserted?
Definitely something I inserted. I think the turtle and there's so many things that a turtle can symbolize, like with the shell, and something that is talking about speed and history and time. And also, I mean, for those who've seen the film, like there's a scene where Imelda sort of leaves the turtle on its back, as kind of an evil sign of, or an initial sign of her evil. So I think I was thinking more about it in like a symbolic way. But in terms of like procuring the turtle, my uncle has like several pet turtles. So I went and had a visit with him, and he was like, "Take your pick for whoever wants to be in the film." And so I was able to pick the one that was the right size, I think. I had to pick the one that I thought would be most camera ready.
Yeah. Well, it's also the first time we saw the turtle is being dangled, right? That was yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. How did you come up with that idea of being evil through the turtle?
Yeah, I think definitely I was looking at to prepare for the film, I was definitely looking at a lot of films that kind of subvert or kind of add on to the conversation of how historical figures are portrayed. A lot of like historical biopics that also are dealing with like anachronistic timelines and things like that. So I was looking at like Marie Antoinette and like some of Pablo Larraín's films as well. Jackie, and I guess he just made Spencer, but that was after the fact, after I made this film.
Right.
But yeah, I think I was thinking a lot about sort of the parallels the parallel histories and lives of Imelda and Marie as well. And I think something that Sofia Coppola does really well in Marie Antoinette is that she uses the pug and the dog as like a symbol of something that she really loves. And so I thought that was a really interesting, just really interesting way to symbolically use like an animal kind of like as property or like as a way to reveal something about a character.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
Let us move to Winning in America. Amrita, the story of a girl on the brink of womanhood seeking to assert her autonomy and agency is something that many audience members can definitely feel and relate to. So what or who was the inspiration for the lead character's relationship with her father?
Thank you. Yeah, I think I was mostly inspired by the winner of scripts in 2018. Her name is Ananya Vinay. And I had seen this clip of her spelling the winning word, and she's just this deer in headlights. Like, she has made it this far, and I don't know if you've seen the script Spelling Bee and how it's broadcast on ESPN, but it feels like this huge event, and it's weird to see like young kids who are like academic athletes in a way manage these expectations, and it usually cuts to the audience and you see the parents typically on the edge of their seats. It's a very interesting dynamic, and seeing her spell the winning word with confidence but also being this young teenager really resonated with me. And then she spells the word, she wins, confetti falls, and like her dad rushes on stage and hugs her. And it looks like the first time she's been hugged by him or something, just because she's so overwhelmed, and it's like very rigid. And there was something there that just really hit with me. And I feel like in a lot of immigrant cultures, the kind of process of being like physically intimate with your parents takes some time, and you are kind of not used to it, and you grow into it. But yeah, so all of that kind of hit me.
Yeah, thank you for that. So how do you feel about spelling bees?
It's a good question. Yeah, I feel conflicted with spelling bees. I think there's a very loaded history there. A lot of Indian Americans have dominated that world, and so there's this kind of sense of pride in that. My sister participated in the spelling bee at the local level when we first moved to the US, and it was a way to assimilate, essentially. So I feel like as a means of assimilation, it's this very weird way of fitting into American culture, and even using English as the language and how you master it to win is, pretty interesting. And I'm excited that someone new won. I think, last year, Salia Vankard, and she was, the first Jamaican immigrant girl to win. So I'm glad that there's these shifts happening and it's more accessible to more people. But yeah.
So what effects do you think it has had, on South Asian American youth? And how widespread is that within the community? Like I don't have a sense of like, what percentage of, South Asian Americans really want their children to be, involved in this.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's always changing, but even before we launched into the Q&A, I think we were all talking as a group about like the kind of academic expectations most Asian people face. And I think it's still a big part of the South Asian community. There's these offshoots that happen when leading up to scripts, where you have something called like the North South Foundation, which I actually reached out to get some child actors involved who are actual spelling bee contestants. So they're very on it in terms of preparing for this competition, and it becomes this lifestyle. Like the whole family becomes involved, and you train, you pass it down to your siblings. And so I think it's very much alive. Like I think Asian Americans and South Asians still kind of prioritize academic achievements in a way, and I think it's changing as we have more accessibility of other opportunities, and we're seeing breakthroughs But yeah, I'm curious to hear what you guys think too in terms of breaking into it, the film industry and how you navigated that.
Yeah. Alex and Kent, do you want to answer or?
Well, I definitely resonate. Growing up, I was expected to be a lawyer or a doctor or a nurse. So finishing university and dropping this bomb of me going into the film industry, it was something that my parents are actually not really happy about. Um, I guess first it's the idea of the creative industry and how it's portrayed, that there's not a lot of money in it. Um, and also that's, that it's also not part of the norm, um, especially within the Filipino, like community and culture. So being able to conquer that and also prove to them that it's actually worth it, maybe not financially, but it makes me happy to be in film. It was something that I really had to face. Like up until now, like my mom would constantly remind me, "Oh, it's not too late yet for you to go to law school." Yeah, so something like that. So being able to see and also like show that it's not just in the Filipino culture, but it also happens in other Asian families and cultures as well. It's really great that you were able to portray that on screen.
Yeah. Alex, do you want to say anything or?
Yeah, I think I really resonate with everything that both Amrita and Kent has said, and I think for me it's also been especially in like growing up in the Philippines and having the kind of majority in or like the majority of the industry being very like commercial and very glossy and very all about which stars can you get. It's almost like Hollywood but even more intense in a way. And so much about the money. I think I think I've had a really really meaningful just experience, especially talking to family in terms of showing them the ways in which like film and images can really like make an impact in the world, and having just like really great conversations with my parents, having screenings with them and showing them films that the power and the political power of films and imagination, because I think it's something that one sort of needs to like seek out, because we're constantly being bombarded by different kinds of advertising and lots of like big Hollywood blockbusters and epic whatever. So yeah, I think that's been really meaningful for me.
Yeah, great. So this is I mean, Amrita, but also anybody, what do you think we can promote a wider definition of success, or among Asian American youth, or empower them to make more decisions about more diverse types of interests?
Wow, that's a huge question. I think that was actually also a main point of inspiration for me as well, because she, spoiler alert, wins the spelling bee, and then she also suffers this loss. Like this relationship with her father is completely changed because she kind of pokes fun at his accent. And I think evaluating what success can look like can also be in these sort of intangible ways. Like, what kind of person are you? How do you evolve as an adult and still not isolate your parents who you may not completely agree with? But yeah, all these questions, I think it's rather than have one set answer. I'm hopeful that like as we make more films as a community, there's no burden of representing this like perfect child and adult. She's free to make mistakes and be a brat and be rebellious. But that was also my fear in like making a spelling bee film, is kind of playing into the stereotypes. And I hope as we make more and more art that we can just have interesting characters that are standalones and aren't kind of these references to a monolithic experience. I think it's great to hear what you guys have shared and how differently maybe growing up things have been, but we still have this shared experience also of the pressure of wanting to succeed. And I think it's also beautiful. Family is important to us in whatever shape or form. I think, yeah, I guess that's success. It's like being able to assert your own identity and your sense of self while still holding on to these like traditional values that make you you and not having to compromise that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Alex or Kent, do you want to say anything else?
Yeah, I guess definition of success is also like for me, just recognizing the small successes along the way. Success when you talk about it, it's so subjective. Some people would look at success that there's this end goal, but also some of these people who looks at that end goal sometimes forget the fact that they experience small successes as they go through the process. So as long as you're doing something that makes you happy, whatever that interest is, and then you embracing it even more, and it makes you even more like it makes you happier the more you do it, and being able to do it sustainably and you know and what do you call it? It's like yeah, like when you do it sustainably, where you can not necessarily rely on your side jobs and being able to do it full time. I think that's what success would be, and also how can whatever you're doing influence and inspire other people to do the same.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks. Alex? You don't have to say anything if you don't want to.
Well, I think something that I'm thinking about too is I don't know if this is like exactly answering the question, but just thinking about ways, yeah, kind of it is very, I think, hard to like find ways to create and not have like the one track mind of like I need to like I need this film to like get into this festival or like win this award or like get this like what we think of as success. I think thinking about the small success is exactly what Kent was saying. Even if something that you make can like if it finds the right audience, even if that is one person, like that to me is a success. Like if my work can speak to one person and have a really meaningful like impact on someone, if it's one person, that's wonderful. So I think like broadening and expanding what success can mean for our own work is really important as well.
Yeah, thank you. So let's move to Kalinga and hopefully we can have a broader discussion at the end. So first of all, full disclosure, I spent my childhood in Hong Kong and I did have a Filipino nanny for 3 years. I think from age 6 to 8. I remember that her name was Adisa, but I don't otherwise remember much about her. So thank you for sharing the stories of the 3 nannies in Vancouver. So what do you think needs to be done both in terms of Canadian and US immigration policies and also in terms of helping economic development in the Philippines so that labor migration is at least, seen as not necessary?
Well, first of all, it's actually like being knowing and understanding more about the caregiver and nanny industry in Canada. It definitely needs a lot of work. I think both in the US and Canada, when it comes to caregivers and nannies, there needs to be a program that is for the nannies and caregivers. Recently in Canada, they've changed the live-in caregiver program to something else, but only to find out that the process has become more difficult for nannies and caregivers to sponsor their families to bring them to either the US or Canada. Um, Also, one of the biggest issues as well is, when especially moms who leave their families back home, they suffer from estrangement from their
Mhm.
kids. And some, like one of the interviews that have been featured in the documentary is that, her son came to Canada as a teenager, and at that point, the son didn't even recognize her as as the mom, that he needed to leave her after getting sponsored. So I think, as as first world countries, with US and Canada, we need to be more um,
Mhm.
involved and be more aware as to what the effects of this of this particular industry is to the home country. It's not just the Philippines. I know there's a lot of Thai, Vietnamese, Indian, um, sorry, who come into Canada to become a caregiver and nanny. And on top of that, I think there needs to be education as well, for the fellow men of these women, that if you do this job, it's not a job that needs to be looked down upon. It's a job that deserves as much as respect as any other jobs, because it is a professional job.
Mhm.
Um, so if we start that way, and the families in the respective countries also know what the actual job is, there is no, hopefully, the idea of, or the pressure of becoming one is not going to be that complicated anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for that. So in your film, we heard your perspective at the very end, but you
Mm-hmm.
chose not to include the voices of people like you who were forced to grow up without your biological mother.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you make that decision?
I guess I wanted to be more streamlined and a little bit more controlled,
Mhm.
on my end, because I grew up with most of my childhood life. My mom wasn't with me, or with my siblings and I.
Mhm.
So when I was given the opportunity to make this documentary, I knew that I had to focus on myself and the titas I have, like the aunties I have in the documentary more. Um, because, believe it or not, during this process, I thought the filmmaking journey is gonna help me, and that it was just for me, and that's when I thought that it's kind of selfish on my end to just focus on my personal healing, based on the stories and the understanding of the struggles and sacrifices of other people.
Mhm.
So when we were in production and the questions started coming out, that's when I realized that this is supposed to be a platform for them. And if, along the way, if it helps me heal and understand what my mom did in the past, then that's already a bonus.
Mhm.
So I decided to focus more on their stories and then add a little bit more of my perspective, and how it became a healing process for me in the end. Um, yeah, it just came together in the post production room.
Yeah, thank you. So, and this is, I simply don't know the answer to this. Are there um, support groups, where people in situations like you, either in Canada or in the Philippines, are there support groups for this? There's a good number of people like you, right? So, in a lot
Mm-hmm.
of places around the world.
Yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of support groups, but probably not, published or super active.
Mhm.
Because again, there still needs more education when it comes to the understanding and the effects of becoming a nanny or a caregiver.
Mhm.
So right now, I'm gonna share something too. I'm part of a program here in Vancouver called Story Money Impact,
Mhm.
under the inaugural program of Story to Action, where we use our film as a tool to hopefully change something in the community. So I'm part of that with this project, and we're actually we put together an impact campaign that hopefully would bring the community closer to each other, and have these support groups recognized, so that when the time comes, and if something happens to the caregivers and nannies coming into Canada or US, they know who to reach out to, and they know that there are places that would support them, especially when they're in trouble.
Uh, they- oh, sorry. Can you repeat the last sentence? You froze for a little bit.
I just said that
Or did we?
when they come in and they get in trouble, they know where to go.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, and I'm also again asking out of ignorance. What is the relationship between nannies and the larger Filipino Canadian community? Because they don't certainly. I mean, nannies live, where they work, right? So I don't know how much contact there is between the larger Filipino American Canadian communities and nannies.
Mm-hmm. I have to say though that Filipinos, when wherever they are in the world, they get to put together a group for themselves. I know that I think it's part of the labor system, but these nannies and caregivers also have days off. Some of them might be live-in caregivers and nannies, but some of them also live out. Um, but what's really nice about the Filipino community is that when you tell a Filipino that there's a certain neighborhood that feels like home, no matter what it is, no matter how far it is, they will be there. And I think, this needs to happen more across Canada, across the US, and hopefully strengthen the community, not just but with each other's presence, but also culturally, because that's when like especially for non-permanent residents who are in the US or in Canada temporarily, this is the kind of community that they need. Um, so yeah, so having like a little Filipino neighborhood where you can enjoy a good budol fight or a good sinigang, it's good.
Wonderful, wonderful. So during COVID, the plight of Filipino nurses has gained some long overdue attention. Certainly still not enough, but there's
Hmm.
at least some. So how has COVID affected the lives of Filipino domestic workers?
It definitely affected because I guess one of the effects of COVID was a lot of these caregivers and nannies actually had plans to go home and be with their families, and they weren't able to do that because of COVID. Second, now that the doors and the borders are opening again, more and more caregivers and nannies and domestic workers are coming into Canada, and again, this kind of exodus is leaving the Philippines as a motherless society. It's really painful to hear, and yeah, and I hope employers or companies or agencies need to be more flexible when these women or these workers would ask for time off just to visit their families, because it has COVID-19, this whole pandemic became like it the need for caregiver and domestic workers became more evident, because
Mhm.
families and parents of Canadians or Americans can't go to work without having a nanny or a caregiver at home to watch their kids.
Mhm.
So I like they technically owe the nanny and caregiver for being there for their family while they make money to provide for their own family. But what they also don't realize is that caregivers and nannies or domestic workers in general also have also have a family of their own that they need to take care of back in the Philippines. So there were so many effects, of course, during this pandemic, but I think the very important one that people need to think about is that you know it is we need caregivers and nannies here in the U.S. and Canada, but at the same time they also need their families back home.
Mhm. Thank you, and thank you for saying, making this issue more public, and certainly beyond the Filipino communities as well. So you said you're using the film, for political action. So what are the actions that you're working on particularly in the
Hmm.
next few months, year?
It's
So.
actually my pitch summit is actually coming in 2 days. So the program has invited people from different sectors, private, public sectors, and also some influencers to hopefully endorse the film, to organize virtual and in-person screenings in remote places, and also organize screenings for employers and also education for the families and the community as well. So the first step before any touch on legislation and policies is to really provide community building and community outreach and showcase the film as much as possible across Canada. Or if there are places, that's why we really targeted Asian American film festivals for the film, to be able to maximize the reach within the Asian community. And once that's done, the next step for us would be looking into opportunities to hopefully talk to more politicians who are in the front lines of um, the legislation and policies on caregiver and nanny industry, to hopefully do some changes and reforms.
Yeah. Any plans to show the film in the Philippines?
It's definitely there. The plan is there, but again, we're still in this pandemic.
Yeah.
It's been really challenging, and some of my projects are actually based in the Philippines, and it's been postponed for so many times already. So
Yeah.
hopefully when I'm ready, or we have more of a if we have a better plan to organize something more in the Philippines, we'll be able to do it.
Okay, wonderful. So we just have a few minutes left. So can you, first of all, thank you to Kent, Amrita, and Alex for taking time off your busy schedules to join us. Can each of you tell us where we can find your work, and how we can support you? Alex, can you go first, maybe?
Sure. So I guess the best place is just my website. It's just www.alexwestfall.com. And yeah, I'm working on like my debut feature. I've been working on it for a year. So just stay tuned. I guess it might be it might be a few more years, but yeah, thanks so much for having us, Eric. It was so lovely to talk with you and to meet you, Kent, and Amrita as well. So thanks so much. I'm really grateful.
Okay, thank you. Amrita.
Yeah, also I think my website would be best. It's www.amritafilm.com. And similarly to Alex, I'm so appreciative of this space and just like the ability to talk about these things in a very beautiful, inspiring way and hear about your work. So looking forward to supporting you guys as well.
Okay. Kent.
Me, website's actually in the process. It's a work in progress. So for now, you can look me up on my Instagram. It's Kent Donginas, just my first name, last name. That's me. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here and being able to hear Alex and Amrita's stories as well. Also in the works for my first feature. It's been 3 years. That's the project that's been getting postponed. It's about my personal journey of fixing my fractured identity as a Filipino Canadian through traditional Filipino tattoos.
Great.
Yeah. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your films with us, and we hope to see your next projects in a year or two. So great. So thank you to everyone for attending our virtual Q&A today. Today is the last day of PAAFF 2021, but this is by no means the last event. In half an hour, 2:30 Eastern Time, there is a panel on the road to social impact filmmaking, and it features Jamie Wu, Jerry Leonard, and Betty Yu, and the moderator is Oni Win. Then at 4 p.m., we will be announcing the winners of this year's PAAFF Awards. So please join us for that. And then our final Q&A will be at 6 p.m., and this will be on Andrew Chung's White Elephant. And then finally, our in-person closing night screening is sold out, but a Sexplanation is still available for rent, and the film will be available until 7 p.m. tomorrow. So that is all for now. I'm Eric Hong. Have a great afternoon. Thank you. Bye.
Got me feeling lonely.